Good day and welcome to this episode of the Moneybytes podcast. My name is Lulu, as you already know, and today we have a guest. The first guest on the podcast, actually, his name is Emeka Onwosu, and I'll let you do the honors. Introduce yourself and just tell us about what you do.
Yeah, man. It's amazing to be here. The first podcast. So I'm glad you guys, reach out to me. So yeah, Emeka Nwosu, I am the co-founder, CEO at Scalex Africa. So really, my background, I have a major in economics from the University of Port Harcourt. Currently sitting for my MBA at Lagos Business School. Career 7+ years in the banking sector. GTB, Heritage Bank, Diamond Bank. Left the bank 2017, dabbled a little bit in real estate. Then I think 2019 said, "Hey, I think it's time to really chase this passion in tech," and that's how we found ourselves here.
Wow, that's a very interesting background.
Yeah.
I wanted to study economics too, but I wasn't smart enough, so I studied computer science instead.
Whoa.
And then I funny enough, I've never really given my background on this show before. And okay, for me, basically, studied computer science and worked in consulting, tech consulting
Awesome.
for about 10 years, mostly consulting for banks and oil and gas companies as well. And over that time period, I had the opportunity to work specifically with banks. Especially, I started my career as an application consultant, deploying web application firewall for banks. A couple of banks. I don't want to give them publicity, but you already mentioned some of them. Um, GT Bank, Eco Bank, First Bank, and I was privileged to handle a lot of solutions, provide a lot of solutions for them, and also moved on to do beyond that, where I really started getting so much involved in finance because I didn't really, when I say I worked in the financial sector, I wasn't like a financial advisor or maybe a
Yeah.
stockbroker or whatever,
Yeah.
but I was privileged to work on transaction lifecycle management products for a couple of banks. We actually pioneered that solution for a couple of banks in Nigeria. And what that means is that we deployed settlement applications for banks. We actually
Wow.
built settlement applications as well. So to settle transactions between interbanks and
Oh,
all of that.
awesome.
So
Okay.
yeah, so that was that's my background. And like obviously, you work for an organization for like 7 years, 10 years, or different organizations, you get to a point that you start feeling, I think I've seen some things that I could probably do differently here. What were those things that you saw that made you decide to start Scalex?
Okay, yeah. So, like going back to the bank and my career in the bank, I was really excited.
Yeah.
Leaving school, NYSC, and my first job NYSC was the bank, and I was like, hey, I really want to go into this sector and see what's going on. I had so much high hopes. Okay, but I got in. Yeah, I noticed that. Like I would say the banking sector is quite matured already.
Yeah.
So they already had like set down. It's very bureaucratic, and so then, GT Bank operations, Heritage Bank. I worked with the e-business department, deploying POS terminals. Then
Okay.
at the point, so I had a little bit of experience, playing in the channels
Yeah.
department in Heritage Bank. Then, of course, operations in GT before coming to Diamond Bank. Then, and I was thrown right into like customer service or
Okay.
personal banking. So for me, the first experience for me was learning how to interact with people because I was a very timid person. I didn't like to talk to people, but
Same here.
but that experience put me there. So I had to learn how to my interpersonal skills, communication skills, and everything. And then, of course, being at the core of the customer facing part of the business, you get to start seeing a lot of things that everyday users in Nigeria are struggling with.
Yeah.
So we've I basically firsthand saw how my salary lost value as the naira to US dollars and everything. When I joined the bank, I felt like I was a big boy. I used to buy my stuffs online, Amazon, and
Same
bring
thing.
them into
Same
Nigeria.
thing.
But staying there, all that started dwindling down, and I felt like, these are all financial challenges, and the bank should be at the forefront of coming up with solutions for this.
Yeah.
So, seeing as we've gone from cards that didn't have any limits to purchase things online to now I think it's $20 per month.
$20 per month.
It's crazy, and I try to figure out, hey, what's happening here. But then I felt like, okay, I could impact more. Being in the bank, you're an employee, you can't really do much,
Yeah.
So I felt like, hey, I think I had to step out a bit, bring in all that knowledge, all that experience, and then I think in 2016, that was when I came across blockchain. And at the time, I was like, "Hey, this is
It's
something
pretty interesting, right?
something pretty interesting." And I think then it was just Bitcoin, Ethereum before the Ethereum hard fork. Then Ethereum Classic came out.
Yeah.
So there are very few, cryptocurrencies then, but the fundamental was peer-to-peer transactions, borderless, immutability, transparency, and it was all like, wow, this might just be the future for Africa,
Yeah.
And that was what just I looked at and I was like, hey, I think I'll take a leap into this industry.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. When you mentioned working in channels, POS, and all the other channels that banks use to service customers, it reminded me of one of the major problems that we used to tackle when we were deploying transaction lifecycle management for
Yeah.
solutions for banks. It was dispute resolution. That
Mm.
was number one problem
Yeah.
for most of the banks. I know a particular bank in Nigeria back in 2013. I don't know about the statistics now. Back in 2013, they were writing off over 500 million naira every year to dispute resolutions. So we deployed a solution for them. I was actually the application consultant that did the whole deployment and all of that back in did this in 2015 thereabout.
Awesome.
Yeah. So um, what the solution does was it takes transaction records from the ATM machines, from web. They have transaction records from web and POS,
Exactly.
and then we match those transactions together, and then we try to identify disputes.
Exactly.
What could be the reason for the dispute? And this leads us to the topic of today, which is actually traditional finance versus DeFi.
So, yeah.
The reason why I brought that up is because with the blockchain, transaction settlement is basically instant. So you don't have dispute issues that like we have in traditional finance, right? You don't have a situation whereby somebody goes to the ATM to withdraw money and then the ATM is debited. I mean, your account is debited, but you don't get value.
Yeah.
That's one of the major problems that we still face today, even in banking. Even with all the solutions that I myself even deployed, we still could not stop that from happening because it's a failure from the first step of the transaction, right? So how do you see decentralized finance, and how do you think what how do you think it levels up against traditional finance in terms of a lot of all the pitfalls that we currently have with traditional finance?
So yeah, like what you were just saying about dispute resolutions, and one of the core things you figure out is that in traditional finance there are so many intermediaries. I'm sure you handled all those integrations.
Yeah, you have
Your
InterSwitch.
your standard card.
Yeah,
One, the issuer is not even Nigeria.
yeah,
The core infrastructure is not in Nigeria. It's not even in Africa.
yeah,
That's one. Then the switching companies bringing it in 2015. I want to believe then who was handling switching for cards? I can't recall. But really, yeah, like there's just so many intermediaries, and then of course down to the bank. So of course, I use my card and the POS. Whatever happens, network issues or it could be anything. I can recall then in Diamond Bank, like we were using Visa. Visa was it was a whole lot of problem. Like every day I had customers like really screaming at me, like, what's happening, failure, everything. But and you start wondering what's going on. Like, why are we having this many issues? And the banks can't really do anything because they don't own that infrastructure.
yeah,
Unlike when you now come into the blockchain, it's just so efficient.
yeah,
You do a transaction based on Bitcoin network, Ethereum, Avalanche, wherever. It's just the same thing. I send you a payment, you receive it. The hash is there, you can verify it. So the only other thing that could be a challenge is probably okay. It's the speed.
yeah,
Okay, because I understand there was a time Ethereum was taking quite a time, sometime Bitcoin, but that is it. It's it's one way.
Yeah.
And you can always verify what went wrong at any point in time. Most of the challenges you could have, you don't have disputes, like you said, when it comes to the blockchain transactions and
Yeah.
payments, unless you probably made a mistake in the wallet
In your
address and it,
wallet. Yeah.
and then it becomes really, really difficult to be able to, step in and do all that. But that is where, DeFi comes in. DeFi has been able to bring in that whole blockchain architecture and infrastructure into everything. And the fact that everything is transparent and you basically know who you're dealing with at every point in time, you can
Yeah.
verify transactions real time on chain. It's just brilliant, I would say. Yeah.
That's fantastic. What would you have to say to people that say, because one thing that I've had a lot from people outside the industry is that DeFi, the blockchain is meant to be the blockchain is meant to be this immutable, secure environment, right? Where you don't have a whole lot of all the BS that happens in traditional finance.
Yeah.
But it seems like DeFi is trying to replicate what we already have in traditional finance, and that's why a lot of people always okay. Before we even go too far, I don't think we defined DeFi, but for those who might not know, DeFi is basically decentralized finance, and what that encompasses is basically the same kind of things you do in traditional finance, but doing it on a blockchain infrastructure, right?
Exactly.
Where you have 100% ownership of whatever financial decisions that you take, right?
Exactly.
So maybe you want to send money to someone, you want to pay, pay some bills, you want to remit money from to your family in Nigeria or your family anywhere you live, you know, you do it all over the blockchain rather than doing it on traditional finance rails where you have Western Union will be the
Yeah.
intermediary, you have Visa, you have MasterCard, you have InterSwitch, you have Union Pay, 100 different intermediaries between you and the customer or you and your counterparty. That's the difference. So what a lot of people say is that with DeFi now, it's like DeFi is replicating what you have in traditional finance, and it looks like DeFi is also doomed to repeat some of the mistakes of traditional finance. What do you have to say to that?
So it's a dilemma, and most times I think, is it a builder issue? Is it a developer problem? Or is it a VC pressure problem? Or we're like, it's early days, and I think we are all just trying to find out proper footing.
Yeah.
That's one. Um, DeFi, everybody is just so bent on, hey, okay, let's improve. I mean, like Web 1, Web 2, Web 3.
Yeah.
So, okay, Web 3 means improving on the lapses of Web 2. So, okay, payments in the banks. Okay, let's come down to Nigeria. Okay, I can't basically access, I can't use my Naira card to make purchases abroad. What do I do? Okay, I could use crypto payments to bridge that gap. So I get a card that I can fund with my USDT or whatever, and I can make those payments, and that's that. So people are just trying to find quick fix replicas of whatever
Of
is on TradFi in
yeah.
DeFi. Let's go cold call DeFi. Okay, lending protocols. Um, in traditional finance, I have to go to the bank. I have to do certain level of number of transactions. I have to do KYC. I have to bring this document. I have to do this one. It's a whole lot.
Yeah.
DeFi doesn't care about that.
That's
It doesn't care
Quiver's
about that.
that's Quiver's selling point. We
Yeah.
don't care about all of that.
Do you have the collateral? Fine. So long as you can get the collateral, you drop it. Okay, I have 100,000 USDC. I want to. What's the protocols? Different protocols have there. Okay, if you can access 60%, fine. You
Yeah.
access 50,
Loan to
and
value
that's it.
ratio.
No problem. And I don't even think there is a time span for you to pay it. Like, some can control it, but
Yeah.
you know the interest rate you pay,
Yeah.
and that is it. I control all the narrative, and nobody is taking my data to understand, okay, x amount of people are, this is the demography and
Exactly.
everything,
And then
you know
trying to sell you other products that
Exactly,
fueling consumerism basically. So you keep buying and buying and
buying and
buying
buying
things
and
you don't
buying.
need.
So I do everything. I have full control over that. But then, like, yeah, we are in that lapse where we're trying to replicate most of the things in traditional finance. I think that's the first step of DeFi, trying to improve upon what is there. But DeFi will still has some of its limitations. And for me, I think the core area is adoption because of the narrative, especially when you bring it down to Africa. How cryptocurrencies and blockchain was introduced, unfortunately, wasn't like the best way. I think it came through the MMM, Mavrodi and stuff.
Yeah,
So there's already that bad perception around cryptocurrencies. But we are seeing the millennials and Gen Z changing. We are
changing the
quickly,
narrative.
onboarding into it. But I think the first step is trying to improve upon the lapses of traditional finance, especially in Africa. And that's why if you look at the divide between how we're using blockchain in Africa and in the West, there is that the West is called DeFi.
Yeah,
We are not really playing DeFi in Africa
yeah.
just yet.
When you look at the blockchain analysis, you actually find out that most of Africans are really using the blockchain and cryptocurrencies as just an inflation hedge most of the time, and maybe to trade slight arbitrage in P2P. That's
Arbitrage.
that's the major use case. But when you talk about core DeFi, like interacting with lending protocols,
Yeah.
maybe even NFTs to some high degree, you might have some enthusiasts, maybe like you and I, probably
Yeah.
integrates with DeFi protocols and all of that, and try
Yeah.
to leverage those protocols to do
Exactly.
something different. But when you look at the average man on the streets,
Yeah.
they're just trying to get lucky. It's more or less like gambling for
Exactly.
the average man on the street. So how can we change that perception? Although I know the perception is changing, but what can we do as builders in the scene to change that perception?
I think that's one of the areas where, like, I really admire what you guys are building at Quiver, and it has to do with building very simple solutions. And I think first, design is very key.
Yeah,
Simple designs that kind of like make it look like users down here in Africa are interfacing with a Web2 protocol.
simple.
Because I recall the first time I went to an exchange, I was like, Bitfinex, I was like, what exactly is going on here? Is the other book was something strange to me. Like, what exactly is this? It took me a while to understand the other book. But yeah, so in Africa, we need to come up with very simple solutions, try to make it easy for people to, and that's why you're seeing a lot of us building some of our applications to kind of like follow, like similar to the fintech kind of vibe.
Yeah,
So, hey, you understand, okay, I'm collecting your name, you're this, you're doing this, you're inputting this, you're uploading that. So we're bringing in smooth. But I think we need to get to a point where, especially for Africa, they're building solutions that are back end blockchain heavy,
yeah,
but on the front end, users, because at the end of the day, I think people just want solutions solved.
yeah,
And in as much as we don't need to throw all that whole jargon in their faces,
yeah.
DeFi protocol and everything. I mean, this product actually enables you to do XYZ. Simple. The banks can't, you can't, I mean, you can earn this amount of APY in the banks and everything, but with this protocol, you can earn better. Is it secure on this? Yeah, you put it. So, and that's why I say, like, I really love what you guys are doing at Quiver, because you guys have brought it down to a level where everybody can understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a very good one, and thanks for the thanks for the shout outs.
Yeah.
When we when we started out at Quiver, what we tried to do was, when we talk about DeFi and when we talk about cryptocurrencies, basically, people like we said, people look at cryptocurrencies as a platform where they can just get lucky. Okay, if I buy Bitcoin and just sit on it, of course, you will probably get lucky, right? If you do your due diligence and choose specific kind of tokens, you probably get lucky with it. But that's not the real use case for blockchains, right? The real use case for blockchains is to supercharge the financial ecosystem and really change the way we think about money. That's the real use case. And when we started, we thought, look, if you want to get a loan today, you walk into a bank, you probably hear a no.
Yeah.
Your wife could be in labor in the hospital and you want to get a loan, you probably hear a no. So
Yeah.
how do we change that? We try to look at real life scenarios. What are the real life pain points that people actually feel? You see, a lot of people have assets
Yeah.
that are dying. You know, my dad is into real estate, and one of the things he told me, we're just discussing. This is like 3 4 years ago, even before Quiver, was that majority of the real estate assets in Nigeria are dead capital. And why is that? Majority of those properties do not have the proper documentation, right, to enable them use them as collateral for loans
Yeah.
in a bank. So I started thinking about it. So it's not like Nigerians, when we say Nigerians do not have access to credit, it's not like Nigerians are poor,
Yeah.
right? The problem comes from the financial services sector. It's not like Nigerians do not have assets that can be used as collateral to get loans, right? It's just that the way those assets are set up, they cannot use them as collateral. You know, somebody has ancestral farmland
Mm-hmm.
in his village,
Yeah.
wasting away,
Yeah.
and is dying to feed himself. Like, these are little problems that if you find one of the things that I also realized that differentiates us from even countries like South Africa, not even America, is access to credit. A fresh graduate can graduate from university, walk into a bank, get a job, walk into a bank and say, look, I have a job with XYZ organization, maybe some mining company, and then
Yeah.
this is what I earn. I
Yeah.
want to buy a brand new car.
Yeah.
And you get access to loans.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible. I don't think that, I don't know, except, well, I knew when people who worked in banks, right, when I think it was Access Bank then, that they would give you a car and then you
You pay
get to
over
pay it over
time.
4 years.
Yeah.
How many people really have
Yeah.
access to those kind of things? You know, so yes, let's not completely rubbish the traditional finance
Okay.
system in Nigeria. They're doing a lot. I mean, it's an industry that I have first-hand understanding of how it operates. So they're doing a lot, and they're even doing a lot more advanced than what you have out there when it comes to um, making transactions happen,
Yeah.
right? So especially things like switching, things like weekend transactions. You can still do weekend transactions in America. I think
Wow.
it just really started when Zelly came on board. So
Okay.
till today, if you get um whatever you have in your bank account, if you try and do a transaction on Friday night, it's not going to go through until probably on Monday.
Monday.
But in Nigeria, you do that
Anytime.
transaction on Friday night or even on Saturday morning, anytime over the weekend, the settlement comes in on Monday, they batch it all together as Monday transactions.
Yeah.
And then, so those are the little things that we looked at and like, okay, you know what? There's a lot of good things that we have in our system. We can supercharge it with the blockchain.
Yeah.
You know, we can make it better with the blockchain. And I think that's one of the major concerns that we are trying to solve. So what do you think can be done within the current Nigerian ecosystem to to make it more easier for builders right now? Because the truth is we need more builders.
Yeah.
We need more builders. I don't want Quiver to be the only company doing what we are doing.
Yeah.
So every time I hear somebody else thinking in the same direction, I'm actually happy because what it tells me is that we are doing something right. So what do you think can be done? Because I know there are a lot of smart people in Nigeria.
Yeah.
There are thousands of smart people, millions actually. So what do you think can be done from maybe the government's end that can actually make more people be interested in working in this industry?
For starters, the government really needs to, when you
Remember they said they want to tax us now.
I mean, I read it and I'm like, we're seeing more developed countries still struggle with that. I mean, like, we're talking about you have the non-custodial and custodial wallet. So who exactly are you trying to tax? Are you trying to tax the custodial wallet providers? Fine,
Yeah.
it's possible.
Yeah.
But if MetaMask, I have my funds in MetaMask, how are you gonna know what I hold? So that's one. But let's bring it back to your question. Like, of course, the government has to like embrace the technology. to
Yeah.
some good level. Um, I believe most of the government seems to, especially when it comes to the CBN, the areas they usually have the most issue with is areas that touch upon finance, payments,
Yeah.
and all that, because of course consumer protection and everything, AML,
Yeah.
anti-money laundering and all that. So it's understandable, and that's why to a large extent I'm pro regulation, but meaningful regulation,
Yeah.
not regulation that is of which the premise is I am trying to also kind of like massage my own account somewhere. No, 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 no. But regulation that
Not
is,
rent seeking.
yeah, exactly, regulation that is futuristic,
Mm.
long term, and because at the end of the day, a lot of the developers in this space are millennials and younger and Gen Zs, and a lot of the people who are calling the shot when it comes to policies in Nigeria are more like the baby boomers,
Yeah.
and there has to be that connect to understand that, hey, this is a new technology, and these guys might be the ones that understand it the most, and for us builders in the space to actually really build meaningful products, there are a lot of things that also need to be built out, especially on the infrastructure side, like DeFi in Nigeria. One of the core things, like, because let's say we're trying to improve upon TradFi, right? So there are some infrastructures that need to be in place. If we are having people like the Verify Me, there are multiple guys handling verification KYC
Yeah.
in the traditional finance sector. Bringing it down to DeFi, we need a protocol provider. Someone needs to actually take out that job and say, hey, we are going to build out a decentralized ID verification infrastructure, because
Mm.
we need these things to be interoperable. I
I,
don't need to.
I think Core ID is working on something like that. When I went for the fintech seminar,
Awesome.
I think I met with someone from Core ID that they did a presentation on
Awesome.
Web3 identity and all of that. So
Yeah.
continue. Let me not
So
finish up.
so that's one. Because um a user in Scalex, for instance, needs to be able to migrate to Quiver Finance,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you're going to be using NFTs or whatever, or tokens or whatever, but
Yeah.
we need to be able to move across our platforms, and my ID takes me without onboards me instantly without me having to go through that
To go
hassle
through.
again. And
Yeah.
these are some of the things that puts blockchain ahead of traditional finance.
Yeah.
The ability to move across board. Because for instance, I play in the NFT space a lot, and there are NFTs that you hold that give you access to various kind of platforms.
Yeah.
And just because that it's in your wallet.
Yeah.
So but in TradFi, I can't move my data from GT to EcoBank, from EcoBank to bro, I need to go start the whole process.
Yeah, you
fresh.
have to fill form.
So that's one.
Fill form you go tire.
Bro, you're gonna fill a lot of forms. So we need such infrastructures. Then when it comes to DeFi protocols, builders in DeFi area that are building out
But
lending.
wasn't that the problem BVN was meant to solve? Right? If you already have my BVN, you already know everything about me to an extent. Why do I have to go to? I want to move. I want to open a new bank account, and then I have to go through the same 1 million steps.
But then we're seeing situations where the BVN infrastructure has been compromised.
True.
It shouldn't be.
True.
It shouldn't be.
True.
And that is a problem. I'm not going to mention names. I'm not going to mention who, but we know.
So
we're in this space.
So that means that kind of infrastructure should be private sector led.
If it's going to be private sector led, then of course with certain controls. The thing is, humans are very.
So we're talking about that kind of infrastructure for the blockchain industry now.
Okay.
Should be private sector led, right? So, or could it be a public-private partnership like you have? What do you have now? I think NIBS. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
NIBS is kind of like a partnership between the banks and CBN.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of a public-private partnership.
Yeah, exactly. There has to be a referee in the middle to ensure that everything is done according to the book.
Yeah.
I don't know how BVN is being governed. I don't know how it was possible for this system to infrastructure to be compromised. It's crazy because there are Their individuals is more than 1 billion numbers.
Yeah.
How that happened, I don't know. Because I was in the bank when we were actually registering BVNs.
Yeah.
And it still baffles me that that was possible. I, as a banker, and I was on that desk, I supervised some of it.
There's even,
Realizing that someone could, I was a bit shocked finding out. I was like, how did this happen? So
there's even certain states in Nigeria that they are known for that.
exactly, let's not mention names.
them.
So that's one. Then coming back to DeFi, there was something you said about someone that has a family land. A lot of Nigerians have different kind of assets, be it your gold, whatever, and you're stuck in the process. And I feel like one of the stages we need to get to is the ability to
Tokenize.
digitalize real life assets.
So that's part of
Yeah.
our roadmap, our product roadmap in Quiver as well. Since I started tinkering with the blockchain and the idea of tokenization,
Yeah.
securitization, and all of that, it came to my mind that, look, if you have land somewhere, you have some real world assets, why can't you tokenize it? Tie that real world asset to something on the blockchain,
Exactly.
and then you can use it for collateral.
Sure.
That once we're able to do that, I believe we would really transform the financial reality of Nigerians and Africans. Because
yeah.
okay, look at like the Masai Mara culture and maybe some part of Nigerian culture, maybe Fulani culture.
Yeah.
Their wealth is in their cows.
Yeah.
It sounds stupid if you say you want to tokenize or digital
Yeah.
to tokenize cows.
Yeah, it may sound stupid, but it's possible.
It's possible,
and has a lot of
potential.
Potential.
Because
Yeah.
so if we can get that done, it means that the Maasai guy who has most of his wealth in cows, now that wealth is in the financial system. There is a lot of wealth that is outside the financial system.
Exactly.
And that wealth cannot grow outside the financial system because you don't have access to leverage.
Yeah.
Things that can actually make that wealth grow faster. So if we can, so there's a lot to build, really. There's a lot to build in the in the blockchain DeFi environment, really, especially in Nigeria and Africa.
Yeah.
There's a lot to build.
Yeah, you're right. Like for me, I'm always of the opinion that Africa has the most to gain from blockchain.
Definitely.
Mind you, we are in a continent that we have 52 countries. We're not like Europe that has the euro.
Yeah.
That makes trade across neighboring countries easy. So in Africa we have nothing.
Yeah.
Our currencies are very exotic. You barely see them in the international FX platforms. So everybody they are very illiquid.
Yeah.
I can't take Naira and land in Poland and I can exchange it for nothing. Nobody's going to take it from me. So, but that's where cryptocurrency is coming.
Definitely.
And that's where DeFi protocols come in.
Yeah.
The ability to intertwine all these regions, all these infrastructures. And that's why I love it, because you're building on probably Polygon Network, Binance Smart Chain, Ethereum.
Yeah.
The guy building from Senegal, from Kenya, is still building on the same network.
Yeah.
So already your infrastructures are already married.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of just opening up some endpoints. Already I can make payments if I want to.
Definitely.
So it's DeFi. It's bringing it back to the topic of DeFi versus TradFi. DeFi is highly scalable. It enables us. It gives us the ability to leapfrog the rigidity of traditional finance, because a few days ago, someone called me and like, hey, he needs to send some funds to Angola and he's confused about how to do it. But I could right now tell you, hey, if that person has a Bitcoin wallet, or you can send him value now, because I don't know any fintech that can send payments to Angola. If I search, I could find.
I think I know one, but I'm not sure. So I don't want to say
exactly. So we're not sure. But the guy in France knows immediately what to do if he wants to send money to Austria, SEPA.
Yeah.
It's there.
I mean, if you want to send to Angola, you can still do the normal Western Union or whatever, but then the person will have to wait maybe 2 days. Then
you have to leave your house, go into a bank, fill forms.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. One of the projects that I worked on, that was the last project when I was in paid employment, the last project I worked on was actually to help a transnational Pan-African bank to settle transactions between its affiliates across, I think, 37 countries in Africa.
Wow.
So that was a very beautiful project. We built the whole settlement infrastructure from scratch,
All right.
and I noticed that when we're doing so many different funny names they call Zaf, Zof, so many different names for currencies and all of that. Transferring money between Nigeria and Ghana sometimes is a big headache.
Yeah.
So we even did the Nigeria part of it in a silo, and then Ghana and all the other countries we did it like combined. It was a crazy process, but
Yeah.
what that showed me was that we have a long way to go in Africa because, like you said, the euro trade between European countries is
Yeah.
5 minutes, you're done.
Yeah.
In Africa, it's virtually impossible. It's almost impossible, and there are a lot of loopholes or whatever, jumping jacks or whatever that you have to do, all those
Exactly.
to climb just for you to be able to do simple transactions. And how do we then grow from that? I think there's a lot of work for us to do in the blockchain space. There's a lot of work for us to do. We have a lot to build, and I think if we keep talking, we might not be able to finish this conversation today. So can you just tell us a bit about Scalex and what you guys really do, and how people can actually get to use your platform, and then
Okay. So for us at Scalex, it's been quite a journey. We started off as, hey, we wanted to build out a P2P platform for Nigerians. And by building out a P2P platform, something that was different from what is available, attainable, even in our biggest exchange in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Because for us, we felt like, hey, this whole process of P2P can be automated. I don't have to go through the whole headache of I'm buying from you, for instance. I have to make a payment to you. I have to confirm I made a payment to you. You have to confirm if received that payment before. So what we did at Scalex was, hey, we built out a P2P platform that practically what we're saying is that you can be somewhere partying, chilling, and you have your USDT up for sale. And our platform actually consummates those transactions for you real time. Or it just sees your credit alert. So we did that, but then we started seeing a need for more precise kind of payments, and that was what led us to partner with the FTX community, because at the time they needed an on and off ramp infrastructure.
Okay.
And why? Because most of their users were going to Binance P2P, and what happens? I've registered on FTX. I go to Binance P2P. I want to buy Solana. It's on Binance now, am I? So basically, I think they were struggling with a little bit of attrition, user and everything. So they needed something a bit more in-house.
Yeah.
And then I knew the then African lead. I say, hey, we could build out something for you guys. And I didn't know what to do, but I said, hey, we could build this out.
Yeah.
And we went back back home with the team and like, hey, and okay. We cooked up a few things and we were able to channel I want to buy and fund a particular wallet, because it's actually basic if you look at it.
Yeah.
So what we did was we created an infrastructure, but of course FTX users had to register on our app, and they were able to fund not just FTX, Gate.io, any place. At a point we were even able to fund like a sportsbet.io. So because we saw the use to even it mustn't be exchanges.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be exchanges.
So we built that out, and then of course in March this year we went to the Binance Summit in Dubai, and we met up with a couple of other teams, global teams, and our perspective started opening up to more opportunities and everything. And we said, hey, we could actually focus fully on this on and off ramp infrastructure and try to make it as flexible as possible.
Yeah.
And that was then when we now said, hey, okay, we're going to go fully into this. But then, of course, when it comes to on and off ramp, there are a whole lot of other things you need to factor in, liquidity and some other factors. But we are here to do the hard work. So what we've focused on now, we've left the P2Ps there. We have the bridge infrastructure that enables people to fund any wallets, and also off ramp directly into your bank account, real time, no problem. So what we're trying to do now is that a lot of teams are building out of Nigeria and Africa. everybody's trying to provide figure out their liquidity infrastructure in-house is a problem long term.
Mm.
If everybody's having to build their own pay stack, if every fintech is having to build their own pay stack, is a problem.
Yeah.
But if someone can focus on that and let people focus on their core business, that's what we're trying to do. Are you a lending protocol? Are you a play to earn protocol? Focus on your core business. We'll build out infrastructure that ensures that your users can on off ramp. And of course, what we're trying to focus on is ensuring it's as affordable as possible. So it's not eating into your cost.
Into your, yeah.
So that is what we're trying to do now. Skelex is moving more into a B2B2C kind of infrastructure.
Yeah.
And then of course the opportunity came up, we said, hey, we could actually also be one of the first Web3 based on and off ramp infrastructure providers in Africa. So basically, I would say, although I understand Onboard from Nestcoin built out something, but I think it was on Tron. But what we've built out, I can basically plug in my MetaMask wallet and fund it and on off ramp as well. So
that's why we're partnering with
you. So it's really what we're trying to do here. We're trying to build out solutions that enable people to onboard into the crypto economy, because that is where we see is the base layer. People need to be able to convert their fiat to crypto and crypto to fiat first
before you even talk about any other
what
beautiful
next?
Esoteric thing. If you can't get the money into the ecosystem, then
you can't do anything.
You can't do anything.
So that's what we're here to do. That's what we're building out. And our mobile app is launching this month. Yeah. And but there's a whole lot in the pipeline. I believe like you guys are building to. And next year is gonna be Q1 next year. We're gonna be launching 1 or 2 more features. It's still like a secret right now, but we believe it's something that will really impact and provide a lot of value to the ecosystem. So yeah, that's what we're here for.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for coming. And yeah, so that's the episode. Thank you. I really enjoyed the chat. I learned a lot of beautiful things about cryptocurrencies that I mean perspectives that I might have overlooked, or I might not have thought about. And it was a beautiful conversation. Thank you very much.
Sure, anytime.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, bye guys.
Bye. See ya next time. Bye.
This episode of the Moneybytes podcast was brought to you by Quiver Finance Inc. Follow us to learn more about how to do more with less. Thank you.